today's guest, Colin Cosgrove, working for Laystrom Manufacturing in Chicago.
Growing a business is not something you have to do when you're running a business. You got to have change, right? Change is always going to happen, but you can choose not to grow.
Right.
You can choose to stay stable and kind of stay where you're at. We're going to choose to grow. That's what we're going to go after. And we know that's not, that line up and to the right is not a straight line. It bumps and curves and twists, and we understand that. But directionally, we know where we want to go. But, and I'm based on a little soapboxy here, but if we can build that culture with the right intention and have growth that goes along with it, I don't know, I think that kind of sounds like fun.
If you're in the tube industry, mark your calendar for Tube 2026. More than 1,200 exhibitors from 54 countries will be in one place, showcasing innovations across the entire tube value chain, from raw materials and production to processing, forming technology, and equipment. Tube 2026 is the world's leading trade fair for the tube industry, built for high-level connections, real insight, and new business opportunities. Join industry leaders April 13th through the 17th in Dusseldorf, Germany. For more information, visit tube-tradefair.com.
Welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. I am Dan Davis of the Fabricator magazine, and this is
Lincoln Bruner, also of the Fabricator.
Thank you for joining us today. On today's episode, we have Colin Cosgrove. For those who are big fans of the Fabricator Podcast, you know that he is our first guest ever, dating back to 2022, December?
Late November 2022.
So a lot has changed since then. We're going to catch up with him. He's currently president and CEO of Laystrom Manufacturing, job shop in Chicago. We're going to have a nice conversation about what he's been up to and some really good conversation about what AI might mean for shops.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was very enlightening to hear him sort of just kind of theorize on the fly about the kind of things they could do for training, the kind of things they could do for, just getting people initiated into company. And he's a smart guy.
Yeah. So I think you'll find it both interesting and learn a little bit. Also want to do another call back to our first episode. If you've ever watched it, we've come a long way since then.
We usually tell people to skip through the first 15, 20 minutes just to get to the Colin portion of the podcast. But
yeah, we were early on. We were kind of thinking people would love the witty banter of the people associated involved with this podcast, but that was not really the case.
No, we did bring, we did a callback. So I guess if people don't know what we're talking about, we had a long conversation about a chip product called Wrap Snacks.
Yes.
Extended conversation.
Yes.
Extended.
Encyclopedic, some might say.
Right.
Some might say we weren't intending to go that long with that conversation.
So we've learned brevity in the
in
the years past.
Yes.
So with that in mind, let's just get right into the conversation.
Yeah.
But before we do that, we want to encourage you to reach out. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your favorite potato chips. Let us know your favorite episodes. Just let us know something. You can reach us at podcast@fmamfg.org. And also recommend, review, recline. No, that's not it. Review, recommend, subscribe. That was the third one.
You could recline as well.
Yes. Find us wherever you find your podcast and alert the neighbors, family, and friends about it. All right, and now let's get to the episode. Thank you and enjoy.
Looking to take your leadership skills to the next level? Join Manufacturing Leaders February 24th to the 26th in Clearwater Beach, Florida for the FMA annual meeting. At this premier event, you'll connect with top leaders from the fabrication and metals industries to share ideas, collaborate on business challenges, and build strategic relationships. Start 2026 on the right path. Find details and register at fmamfg.org. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome back to the Fabricator Podcast. Today's guest, Colin Cosgrove. Thank you for joining us. You might remember Colin. He joined us on our very first episode of the Fabricator Podcast way back.
I believe it was, because I looked at this yesterday. I think it was 11/29 of 22.
Yeah, that sounds
the
right.
release date.
It was right after FabTech.
So it was almost immediately
Yeah.
I'd like to say
exactly
we've
3
gotten a
years.
lot better, but I'm not quite sure we have based on this first 2 minutes of this
certain
podcast.
certain aspects have sharpened.
Thank you,
Dan, you
Lincoln.
and I both re-listened to the episode earlier today, and yeah, we've
Yeah,
It's
a little bit more
shocking.
polished.
yeah,
We've improved.
yeah.
Oh, so yeah, with practice comes perfection, and we'll still strive to reach that. So, Colin Cosgrove, you're local,
Yep, I am.
working for Laystrom Manufacturing
Yep.
in Chicago, somewhere where you cut your teeth. But the first time we talked, you were working for S&C
Yep.
in Chicago as well, kind of a hidden giant in manufacturing. Can you catch us up on how the last 3 or 4 years have gone?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And I want to say thanks for having me back on. It was fun 3 years ago, and glad to come back and do it. And yeah, there was a lot's happened over the last 3
Yeah,
years.
for a lot of us.
Learned a ton of things at S&C. Great company. I think we talked a little bit about that last time. What they can do in terms of talent acquisition, talent retention, talent development, career pathways for anybody coming into any level of their career, and the different technologies they have was polymer molding and CNC machining and assembly and stuff that I just hadn't had all that much exposure to. Was wonderful. Great learning experience. A lot of great people, and they continue to be successful, which is really cool. And so was there for a number of years. Stood up a new building while I was there.
Oh, wow. On the campus?
No. Off in a.
Oh, that was in the
Palatine.
suburbs,
Yeah,
correct?
that's right. And was heavily involved in that, and so lots of big decisions, lots of interesting things happens, lots of restructuring, and again at S&C, tremendous opportunity, great amount to learn, and a company that was going through a whole bunch of changes, and with some of that restructuring, the opportunity at Laystrom was there because you guys know Jeff Deck, I
Right,
think,
right.
right? So
He's actually attended a couple of FMA annual
Yep.
meetings, I think. Yeah.
So Jeff was, so I hired Jeff as a plant manager in 2015. So we did a ton of work, obviously, at Laystrom together. And one of the best things about being able to move on from Laystrom was Jeff was right there to step into the role, and the company was going to be in good hands and so on, right? But Jeff told me in the very first conversation I had with him that he was going to retire in 10 years. Well, when Jeff sets a target and sets a plan, he goes and executes the plan, right? One of the things I love about the guy, right?
Yeah.
So 2015, 2025, so there was that opportunity at Laystrom where there was a need there. It was a good fit for it, a lot of history there. And so found myself back in the saddle again,
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting transition back. It's been a bunch of things that are new, some new people, but a lot of the same people. A lot of friendships there, a lot of work we did together. And now we get to kind of recalibrate, and won't have Jeff alongside anymore, which is a whole adventure story about finding the next plant manager. Has been fascinating. But we're looking forward to the next couple of years and seeing where we can take it from here.
Colin, you mentioned that the opportunity that you had at S&C taught you a lot. And what are some of the key takeaways that you've been able to bring back to Laystrom that you feel like is really going to benefit that company now that you're back and running what amounts to a new show?
Yeah. So one of the things that S&C does a lot is a lot of lean technology, a lot of lean. They lean into lean. When you talk about Gemba walks and communication boards and visual management and so on, some of that is stuff we have an opportunity to put in at Laystrom that will help us with our efficiencies and our productivity. And so there seems like there's some, and lean is always about like, what's the right application? Because it's not the same everywhere, and we're not a product shop.
Right.
So we're not going to be running it in the same way, but there are things we can bring into play. So those are big things.
Yeah.
The career pathways is certainly part of it. And we were thinking about, we talked about workforce last time.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about that for years.
Yeah.
What are the ways to help people develop in their careers? There are more structured ways that don't necessarily have to break the bank.
Right.
And so S&C has tremendous structures where you can really, people's careers can really blossom. Can't do the same thing. It's a different scale.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. But if we bring that down and scale it down, how can we apply some of the lessons learned there?
Mm-hmm.
Those are, some of the key things. The technology that is in play, there's a lot of those map against each other, right? Because they have internal capability that is similar to what we have. We certainly saw some newer technologies that we had at S&C But we have the same. Some are newer, some of the cobot applications, but we also had some of those. So there's a lot of the technology side.
Mm-hmm.
There are things on the quality management side of S&C that apply differently for assemblies than they might for Laystrom. But as we grow and as we do more assembly work,
Right.
we're going to be able to bring some of those in. And so if we're doing something like, let's say, torque settings for nuts and bolts, so we're putting assemblies together, you can get wrenches that have torque settings that are on there, and you make sure they don't exceed them. Some of the safety protocols. Safety is really big S&C. We talked about this before, and really big also at Laystrom. But some of the way they approach, some of the formal, the JSAs or others, which you had some of, but there's an opportunity for more. So it's almost more of a scaling up in many ways. Some of it is new, but some of it's a scaling up of some of the capabilities. And those are some of the bigger takeaways.
Very good.
It seems like an opportunity to kind of enhance what's being done at Laystrom already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
So it's a perfect segue when you start talking about doing more assemblies, because even though it's been only 3 years, it's amazing how much can change in 3 years, just in terms of business opportunities, and I'm sure customer demands have always continued to increase. What caught your eye the most in terms of whether it was just observations on the shop floor or just vibes with customers? How are things changed that much since you were last at Laystrom?
Well, I mean, the big thing of the past year has been the tariff-related stuff.
Okay.
Right? It's hitting a lot of different customers in a lot of different ways, and it's sensitivity to the price movements on material and so on. That's just been a really big deal. And what we've seen with some of our customers, there's new opportunities because of it.
Wow.
And there's chaos because of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's two sides to this. And what we're seeing is we've had some customers who have had new opportunities because they have an overseas or low-cost geography of some kind strategy, and we were kind of never quite able to break in there. It was always just that tough, and this has been a story for 20 years in this country, if not more. And all of a sudden, they're saying, actually, we need to make sure that 20% or some amount of what we're doing is going to be domestic, because we're going to have some continuity of supply. And we're not sure what's going to happen. And a lot of it is we're not sure. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to be next 200%, 50%, 0, 300. We just don't know. So we have to do risk management. And so we're getting some opportunities. That's been great. But on the flip side of it, we had some customers, one in particular, who said, look, we need to take all of our sourcing people, and they're a global organization, and they've got stuff in various parts of Europe and overseas different directions, right? And so we need to look at all our harmonized, our HTS codes, are they all what they should be? And that was just a huge effort. And then as they do that, because that impacts how much tariff you're paying, whether it's aluminum or steel, for example. And then as they do all that investigation, they're trying to figure out, well, with these new numbers, should we move things domestically or not? So we're like, okay, great. Yes, you should. Right? This is opportunity
Now that
for
you
us.
mention it.
Now that you mention it, right? And some of the feedback we got from them, 3 months later, was they looked at some significant amounts of business, and they moved very little because it still wasn't the right cost decision to make. So there was but they put a lot of energy into it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was tough judgment, because there was still the Section 232 tariffs were in place. So are they moving it within the USMCA, right? Where are they going to deploy? And so that's been one of the biggest things that would just come back in. That's one of the biggest dominating factors of the past year.
Yeah.
Is what's happening there.
Does that interrupt the flow of business, expected business, or just added uncertainty in terms of relationships with customers?
It added layers of uncertainty.
Yeah.
It also interrupted some strategic initiatives that were already in play, and that either got slowed down because they had to go address these sort of more immediate needs. But it did both. Yeah.
It seems like in the stuff that I've been covering recently that vendors and suppliers are starting to have to work together a little bit more on that term that you just said, risk management.
Mm-hmm.
They're sort of like co-laborers in that in some ways, because you've got this new, shall we say, quote unquote monster to deal with. And then all of a sudden you're in the same room saying, well, how do we manage this? We both want this to work for both of us. And so how has that been going for you in terms of working with your customers to, again, manage that risk that wasn't there before?
I think we've always looked at partnerships as being what we're trying to do.
Sure.
We're not doing quarterly reports, right? We're not chasing the immediate next thing. It's like, how can we have a relationship that's going on over years? And that's in both directions, supplier and customer. So our biggest steel supplier, we have a 50-year plus relationship with them.
Wow.
I personally know the owner and the president. So does Bob Laystrom. Right? We've got a lot of history there. With our customers, we've got a lot of long-term customers. So we've always, certainly in the last decade, looked at where is the value we can provide. So earlier this morning, I had a meeting with a customer who part of the conversation was about, okay, we can change the welding on the corners of these cabinets that we're looking at. Is that a design change that's going to work for you? So we're trying to do that collaborative work, that design for manufacturability or value engineering, early supplier involvement. There's a number of different names for this, but it's fundamentally about value.
Yeah. How long have you worked with that customer to develop that type of rapport?
We've worked with them about 3 years.
Oh, wow. Well, that's nice.
Now we've approached this over the last decade. And part of this for me goes back to when I cut my teeth in the industry, when I started growing up in the industry. We think a little bit about it last time. I started on the shop floor, was in engineering, production operations for a decade or more, and then moved over into sales. So when I went into sales, knowing nothing about sales, the only thing I could kind of make sense of to do was to say, well, how can I help you make this thing more manufacturable?
Right.
It just was a natural fit. Jeff Deck used to approach things the same way. So it was about, where can I bring value in this conversation? So that's always been the way, whether it's that first time conversation with a new potential account, we're often trying to have that conversation, and many manufacturers do. How can we deliver value here? How can we help you be more successful? You talk about that partnership, right? And that goes along with risk management, because we're building the relationship then together and become a trusted partner. And hopefully, even the bigger multi-global conglomerates, some of their engineers, as they get to know us over there, will lean on us. They'll come to us and say, do you have suggestions on this? One of the best parts that we have, if we walk through the shop, and I was to show you, it's a part, this was $67 the first time we quoted it. And then we went to the customer and said, with 3 design changes, we can make it for $59.
Wow.
And the EAU is 5,000 units. Are you interested? I said, well, yeah.
There you go.
That'd be a yes. Yeah.
And then we had that conversation. And so we built, that was part of how we were, part of our flywheel, if you follow the Jim Collins kind of concept of flywheels. And so we were trying to do that and develop those partnerships. Now, part of the conversation with this particular customer earlier today was, can we, there was some cost issues that they have concerns with. Naturally, everyone is sensitive to that. And one of the things we did on the way back from that meeting before we came here was put a call into our paint supplier to say, look, we have an opportunity to win this business, but we all have to collaborate on this and figure out what's the best way to do this together. Because you're not going to get it if we don't get it. Because they're going to be not with a domestic source. They're going to be international. So if you want to get this with us,
work with me
on this. Yeah. And those conversations are really important. Conversations with a little bit of risk management, but it's also a little bit of how are we going after new opportunities for business. I talked to somebody in about a month ago, and they were sharing that their quoting structure was they can quote something that's kind of that doesn't have outside processing in a day or two. If it doesn't have welding or outside processing. If it is welding, it takes them maybe 3 to 4 days. If it is outside processing, it takes them a week and a half to 2 weeks to quote it.
Wow.
That's their experience, and I'm just going to, I bet if you asked 100 different people out there, you wouldn't be shocked by a similar story. So the conversation we're wanting to have with those paint suppliers, and how can we make that change?
Right? Yeah.
And how can
we help you?
Right.
How can we prepare information for you that's different? How can we understand this together so we can turn things faster?
Yeah.
Because that is only going to be beneficial to us both.
almost as if the risk management becomes a byproduct of that trusted relationship. Yeah.
Do you get to the point where you start considering perhaps bringing it in house?
I mean, it's yes, we've talked about that over the years. It hasn't ever made sense,
Right. Yeah.
because we don't just paint one or two colors. We've got a whole array of different colors, and you've got the storage of the product, the paint materials. There's a lot of different pieces to that. It's a big decision, and some fabricators have it,
Yeah.
and usually they've had some anchor account
Correct.
that
That's
you
a
can
good
build
point.
that around. And we may have that, but there's probably a threshold that we need to get to
Yeah.
where that really does make sense.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I was just at a fabricator Midwest here that about 90% of their products go to one industry.
Yeah.
One small, relatively small set of customers. And so that the investment in those powder coating lines made sense because it's predictable.
Yep.
Very much, small set of colors, small set of variables. And but it doesn't make sense for everybody because it's a huge investment, right? It's especially if you're talking about powder coating and ovens and, cleaning lines and all that. But what you say makes sense because you've got a lot of people who want the same thing, but if the investment doesn't make sense, then you're stuck with it. And
It's not just a paperweight; it's a
No.
sprawling.
No,
It's a sprawling gerbil course of metal and heating equipment.
that you owe money on now.
Yeah. So how large an organization is Laystrom nowadays?
We've got about 70 people
Okay.
in the building. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So has that been on the rise? Has business been good?
It's been stable for a
Mhm.
couple of years. It's been we're looking at now a lot of strategic planning and looking at sort of that 5-year plan and where we want to go with it, and that is going to we're expecting that's going to impact
Mm-hmm.
those numbers positively. I mean, that's part of what I'm there to do, right? So we want to look at where we look at again that 5-year time frame. Where do we want to be? And so the stability, the base that we have, we're going to be able to grow off of that and incorporate some of those sort of career pathways. Because
Mm-hmm.
when we look at those 5-year plans, we don't want to just say, here's a number we want to go get.
Right.
It's here's a number or a range that we want to go get, and how are we going to do that? Why do we want to do it, first of all? Because growing a business is not something you have to do when you're running a business. You got to have change, right? Change is always going to happen, but you can choose not to grow.
Right.
You can choose to just stay stable and kind of stay where you're at. We're going to choose to grow. That's what we're going to go after. And we know that's not, that line up and to the right is not a straight line. It bumps and curves and twists, and we understand that. But directionally, we know where we want to go. And the reason to do that, the why behind that, to me is really important. And I don't remember if we said this in the last conversations. Hopefully I'm not repeating it, but who's going to go back and listen anyway? So,
Well, we did. We
No,
did.
so I
but,
mean,
We'll listen to it again 3 years from now when you join us. So.
Unless someone's Googling wrap snacks.
there we go. So we will. We've had this philosophy where if we can build a company where people feel seen and heard and valued, and are able to put food on the table every night and plan for the long term, have impactful and meaningful careers. If we can build a culture that does that imbues that cultivates that based on values and principles that we have respect for, if we can do that, shouldn't we want more people connected philosophically?
right.
I mean, this is to me where we get into the ethics of business and how business impacts the world, impacts broader communities. We're in the city of Chicago. I know we talked about this last time, where a lot of the reputation or rumors around Chicago are overstated, and but we're in an area where we're providing jobs, we're providing opportunity, we're providing community. If we can do that in a very, very divided world, if anything more divided than it was 3 years ago when we talked, if we can build that, shouldn't we want more people engaged in that work?
Right.
And if we can do that successfully, successfully is very subjective.
Yeah.
But if we can do in terms of community building as a business, because we're still a business, we're still going to make profit. We still have to be a
Right.
profitable business. Never going to forget that. But, and I'm based on a little soapboxy here, but if we can build that culture with the right intention and have growth that goes along with it, I don't know. I think that kind of sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And a lot of people in this industry do operate like that. I don't think
Yes.
they've articulated it quite as succinctly as you have just now, but they do believe in that because they feel like we're in a small community, for instance, and we're one of the major employers. They're not in the city of Chicago, but they're a major employer in their small town, and they do want to imbue those values. And they want to, to them, we've heard terms like family atmosphere, heard terms like good community steward, things like that. But it's the same thing, right? It's the same concept of wanting to, make, and you're talking about wanting to make that community bigger for the sake not only of creating that wonderful lifestyle that you've talked about, but also, hey, if we made a bigger profit, that'd be nice too. But it's a both and.
It's a both and. Like both of these can be true at the same time. You do not have to sacrifice people in order to grow a business, and you do not have to. When you chase profit, it doesn't mean you abuse people. Like, absolutely not. I think. Hopefully, if you've been in industry for a while, you've learned some things as you grow along the way. And I was having a conversation yesterday with somebody. I was reflecting on when I was in my late 20s and was a very young and learning a few things about how to run a department, and I was not as kind as I could be. I was probably pretty tough on some people, and I had to learn some lessons along the way there, and it wasn't always coming from the sort of same place, but I had to learn some lessons. And I'm going back to 2002 time frame where we just been through the .com burst, and I was at a business where there was a challenging environment at that moment, and you had to learn, and so that community building wasn't something that just kind of came. Like, it was something that I had to grow with when I think about that, and the responsibility that came with that, and so I think the world has changed in terms of expectations. People coming into the business, any business, have different expectations, different desires for what they want to see from a business in terms of what the business why is and how you then go about doing that work.
Yeah. So I had a chance to chat with the folks at Dane Manufacturing, who will be our 2026 Industry Award winner. Laystrom, 2021 Industry Award winner. All these conversations kind of boil down to culture, and particularly with them is the ability to kind of scale and yet still keep it, but enhance it with more formal processes. But the one thing Troy Berg, head of their company, stressed to me is that, how things have to change after you hit certain milestones in your growth. So with your strategic planning, do you see Laystrom having to kind of change to get to where you want to go 5 years from now?
Yes.
And if so, what might that be?
That's a good question. We're not there yet. That's why we're still in the
Do you have
planning.
an idea of like what that might be?
I have some thoughts about that, but you can do a lot in 5 years, and a lot will. We're here in 2025. Where were we all 5 years previous from today?
Sheltered in place.
And I know this is, it was, we were sheltering in place. So the world can be very, very different in 5 years. So I'm not trying to dodge the question, but some of the answers are going to come along the way of just in what way do we need to change? And in part because we don't know what impact something like AI is going to have on what those change requirements might be. Because I think it is going to be ground shaking. And I just talked to somebody a little bit earlier today, and what they were talking about was their son had come out of college doing coding, worked with a business where every year they hired a number of people coming out doing coding, a large group. This year, first time, none.
Yeah.
Didn't hire any. Now that's coding, not metal fabrication. We're not about welders, but the development of these technologies is moving so quickly. And from what I read and what I hear, a lot of people who are at the top levels and things like AI, they really don't know where it's going to be in 18 months. And so how stuff like that is going to impact the availability of, or the impact of that type of technology is very difficult to see where those milestones might actually hit. So I can think about historically, I mean, someone last year called me a student of business. I was like, it kind of fits. So I can think about where other businesses have had inflection points.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to think about restructuring the entire business. Because at some point, maybe you need to split into business units versus a one cohesive business. That might be a way you think about it. But that's maybe only true if you have certain, let's say, categories in the market that you're going after. Maybe you've got sort of a digital and electronic technology business unit, and you've got a heavy industry business unit. But if you don't know that you're going to grow in those particular directions, then that switch is going to change. So some of those will come organically as the new business that we go get comes on board, and we see what is the right way to serve that marketplace. And is it by, again, business units? Is it by facilities? Is it by technologies? Some of those will come as the strategy evolves over time, because the worst thing you can do with most strategies, like or Kaizans, you'd go do the Kaizen for a week, and on Friday you finish at noon, and then it's in paperwork in a desk somewhere, and nobody goes and applies it. The same thing with strategy.
Right.
You develop it, you put it in place, you have a direction, and then the world changes.
Mm-hmm.
And the opportunity you didn't know you were going to get, you get. Or the illness comes along that you didn't know was going to, whatever the things might be, positives or negatives, and you adjust, but you still maybe know where directionally you're going. But a year in, we're going to do this again, right? We're going to go through a strategic planning process, probably in Q4 of next year. We'll have learned over the year, and we'll apply those learnings and see how much we're shifting. We're not going to be creating entirely new categories, but it'll be shifts. And then that's the time to really anticipate some of those structural changes that may potentially be needed.
What, forgive me if you said this before, but what are the major industries that Laystrom's serving right now with your laser cutting, your welding, and things and so forth?
So we've got a good mix. So we've got medical, energy, agriculture, construction, music, telecommunications, other types of electronics, packaging. So we've had a lot of different businesses we've done work with over the years. One of the things that we all kind of love about that, because it's so dynamic, and we've got these global corporations with layers of structure. And then we've got a guy who's down in North Carolina who makes amplifiers. And last I checked, I think he had 10 people working for him. The only metal he uses is this chassis that's inside his boxes. And these amplifiers are gorgeous. They're craft. And this is his passion. This is what he does for guitars.
How do y'all find each other?
That was a rep group. Brought him in, and he doesn't even use like PCBs in his amplifiers. It's all like point-to-point wiring.
Oh, wow.
So it's this beautiful, creative work of art, really. It's got a little metal chassis inside it we make. And so I love that we have that diversity in our customer base. Sure. It makes it fun.
Where do you think, what are some growth markets that, speaking of the different areas you were talking about before, what are some growth markets that you can see in the next year or two that you really want to pursue?
Well, everybody and their brother and every other family member wants to go figure out how to be in data centers, right? Because we know the expansion of those. I was listening to a podcast earlier talking about the NVIDIA chips versus various others that are being used, and what Gemini is doing versus OpenAI and stuff like that. And the next level, the next generation that they were talking about, so this goes back into data centers. They were talking about it's, and by the time this airs, this might even be old news.
Right.
But the current chip uses something like, I think it's 30 kilowatt, or the board or the frame needs 30 kilowatts of energy. The next generation needs 130.
Oh.
And so it's like telling somebody you got to buy your new iPhone and in order to buy the new iPhone, the next level of technology, you have to change out all the outlets in your house, put in a Tesla power bank, reinforce your floors. And so you think about when people are talking about these data centers, sort of like, oh, people are building data centers. What does it mean? Well, as these technologies iterate, the actual structures become different, the physical structures.
Mm-hmm.
So who's building all of those things? Where's the energy coming from?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so S&C is in an incredible position because of the energy side of it. Wonderful for them, right? That's great. But something I'd love to figure out how to go support is nuclear energy, because I think it's going to be a game changer. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think you're going to there's a company out there who has developed a nuclear reactor that's the size of a small Toyota that can be put a mile underground, so it's safe as far as I'm aware.
Except for the mole people.
Right. So, but it can then power like a data center, and so it's the people that are developing, whether that's the right solution or not, I don't know. But the people who are developing energy solutions is going to be a growth opportunity that we all are going to need. So that would be an area where, yes, we do some work in energy already, but can we find more opportunities there?
Yeah.
And then the construction that's around that, are there opportunities there?
Absolutely.
So it's not just there's a rack with a 19-inch. Those are going to be produced by the million in other parts of the world. It's what are the technologies that are supporting the infrastructure around something like data centers, where I would think about, for example.
Yep.
But it does get very difficult to predict where the markets are going to go. So and I can get on a soapbox much easier than I can look at a crystal ball.
I think it's very real in the sense that, we're talking about exploding data center business, but, the tentacles are long and they touch a lot of the world. But it's driving a lot of investment in the metal fabricating sector. That's where the money's coming from. So these, I for one, welcome our AI overlords. But, these tech guys, it's for all the money they have, it's working its way into the metal fabricating economy. And when it ends, I don't know what makes it end. So it goes back to your question, like, who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I've heard like some of the spending ends around like 2030, but I don't know whether it means like all of a sudden some of these companies just drop by the wayside and stop the investment flow. But, it's going to change greatly. So, it goes back to your point. It's kind of hard to answer what things might be like 5 years from now. Where do you see AI having the most potential on like the metal fabricating business from your perspective?
That's something I'm spending a good deal of time thinking about. I just did a course on it, for a 6-week course on AI, because I felt like I have to learn more. It's absolutely, it's a business imperative and personally interesting. I think it's got to be multifaceted, but I think it should be aligned with whatever the strategy of the company is. So it's not just, we're going to go do AI,
Right.
because AI is something everyone is talking about. It's what is the company strategy? What are you trying to do over 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, with or multiple levels of time scale? And then how can AI enable us to achieve those goals at that pace or more quickly? That would be a way of thinking about it. So is CNC programming is an area. I think last year or earlier this year, Microsoft had it was kind of widely published that the top 20 or 30 jobs that will be impacted the most by AI tools. And that was 4 months ago, so it's probably out of date the next day. But one of them was CNC programmer.
Wow.
So it was an interesting one. It was one of the few manufacturing ones that was on there. So, okay, maybe so. So programming is an area. Development of a part from CAD to being able to run something on the shop floor. Vision systems, which are already in play, but better vision systems for robotic applications would be one thing that I would think about. Market research is clearly something that people can use. We need to think about where we're actually responding to other people using AI. So if the buyer, and we've talked for years about sort of buyer profiles, and people try to figure out what does the ideal buyer look like, and where do they work, and what kind of car do they drive, and all the different things. Okay, well, those buyer profiles, those buyers are now on their cell phone or on their laptop or on their tablet in ChatGPT or in Claude or in Copilot or whatever, that's where they're searching. They're not searching on Google. So is your platform that you have, your digital footprint, is it something that the AI world likes to find? So we talked about search engine optimization years ago. Well, now it's generative search optimization, GSO. So adjusting to that reality. So I think it has to be a number of different sort of multifaceted approach. I don't think it can be ignored. I don't think we can put our head in the sand and think this isn't appropriate for us, or we have to think about where are the right applications. It's going to be individual to each company. Certainly the engineering side and development side, if you're doing product development, there are companies definitely leveraging that for product development. I think one of the challenges we often have as small businesses, and this is something I've really kind of understood from the course that I did, is so much machine learning is built on data sets that are large.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't always have large data sets. So how do we use the data sets that we have to inform the adjustments we want to make using this technology?
Mm-hmm.
But isn't that the ultimate challenge for AI? I mean, to me, that's what, like, if we can see definite efficiencies gained in the chaos, the high mix, low volume world of metal fabricating, finally, I become a believer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's no doubt in my mind that we will. It's just what's the time frame for it, and who are the right people in your organization to be leveraging that? And of course, how are you protecting intellectual property is absolutely critical. That has to be given. You cannot use the open space to public available. That is definitely no. Do not do that. So it's going to have an impact. It's already having an impact. It's just how diverse is it within your organization, and are the right people or enough people engaging with it?
And does it not go back to your partnership topic? Because you're talking with customers and you're having to figure this out together.
Yeah.
And so it would appear that talking with your key customers and leaning into those partnerships is probably going to benefit you, both of you, or however many partnerships you're talking about. Kind of walking that road together to make sure that you're not doing something that's not going to benefit both of you.
Yeah, and I'm starting to ask that question to of customers, just kind of out of curiosity. But how are you using AI in your organization? Because I want to learn broadly how industry is using it, because we're typically, our customers are in industry. So what are the applications? What are they finding as something that's useful? And some are more open than others to having conversations. Some are more open than others to actually using it. So it's a mixed bag. And so many people are just trying to figure it out. And there's going to be winners and losers. There's no doubt in my mind about that. There will be winners and losers. I'm definitely more bullish than bearish not from an investment strategy side of it, but I'm probably more optimistic than I am pessimistic about where AI is going to take us, and our AI overlords taking over. I mean, that's
I'm just covering all my bases.
Well, they're listening.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
We
no
hope they
doubt.
are. Somebody has to.
I'm pretty sure I can entertain them. So that'll be I'll be the court jester of the 22nd century. What do you think of the term knowledge worker being applied to someone in manufacturing nowadays? Is that,
Well, duh.
I mean, yeah, you agree then.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how somebody's trying to contextualize it.
Right.
But there's so many people at Laystrom who are fundamentally knowledge workers. I mean, there is a physical side to it. So what's the application? Like, is the separation, there's this physical work versus non-physical work, if that's the separation of a knowledge worker versus a non-knowledge worker. But you know what? If you're laying down a bead of weld and you're getting that puddle going, like, there's knowledge in that. If you're forming something that has forms going in 3 different directions and you're flipping apart, getting a sequence right and getting the timing right, there's knowledge in that.
So it's always kind of been the case.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of depends on, are you going to say skilled worker versus knowledge worker? Where it's really kind of what's the definition, right?
Yeah. I think what I was hinting at is the conversation that it had to kind of related to AI in terms of AI is only good in terms of the inputs it takes in.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's implementing, what makes, okay, let's do AI. Well, let me talk to my folks first and see like where they think they might need their pain points, where they might think it has the biggest impact.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just an example. But the point being is that the engagement with your colleagues on the shop floor makes the whole enterprise better, whether it's informing maybe engineers who haven't spent as much time on the shop floor, or feedback on flow through the shop floor. So to me, I guess successful organizations, and this might go back to, employee engagement, culture, getting those folks to the point where they're contributing and they're ready to take on whatever's next. You're not asking them to push a button all day.
Yeah, I think when you're thinking about continuous improvement, you're thinking about respect for the people on the shop floor who are doing that work every day. You could certainly foresee a future where you can take your phone or your tablet or whatever, and you could open up some AI chatbot on whatever platform, and you could walk around the shop floor and say, this is a typical flow of material in a shop floor. Here's a plant layout, map this better, and it's going to tell you, move this machine over there, move that machine over there, and you're going to, okay, so now I'm going to spend $400,000 on new electricity, and that doesn't work at all. That doesn't make any sense. Or you can go and engage with your team. You can say, let's walk the floor together and look at the flow of material. What do you guys think we should be doing differently here? And leverage that group who's touching those parts every day and who can understand the constraints and of their particular situation.
Yeah, one of the guys that I've interviewed a couple of times now is exactly in that camp. He's like, go to the people who are doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
They're the world's experts on how that process is done.
Right.
Like that, because it's particular to the company. It's particular to that process, particular to that certain customer relationship. Yeah. So my one question that came up my head, Colin, was when you look at as a business leader, how do you see training your workers changing in the future with AI and with the expansion of all kinds of technologies? How do you see the training aspect changing for you even in the next year or two?
So we're already looking at some internal auditor training right now.
Okay.
And seeing if there's a way we can't leverage some of the technology that's available and apply that within the next audit cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's live. That's already happening. I think as these, you were talking a little bit about when they get more specific and contextual to a specific business, that's really going to be where you're sort of more convinced in a way. I'm paraphrasing your words, but okay, so what if we could have a custom-built chatbot that says, this is our quality manual, these are our SOPs, these are our workers' handbook, these are the equipment we have, and somebody new comes in who wants to learn what the business processes are and kind of how we do things, and you could set up a quiz.
Oh, yeah.
I just made that up, right?
Yeah.
But you could see how that might be, if all those documentation, if all that's on like on a SharePoint, you could see how you could build some sort of a chatbot. You could go in and have somebody do testing, so you could actually validate into the learning. They're not just like, yeah, read the handbook,
Right.
But then you go give them a test,
Mm-hmm.
and I could see how. I'm guessing within an hour, I could actually write that and have it create something.
Very interesting.
Today.
And it's a customized training program just
Right.
for your floor.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I think somebody in a recent panel I was on was talking about how they're using, this is related to training, but they're using, they've got some older equipment, as we all do. And they've either scanned or found a PDF online of the manual for the equipment. So now they've dropped that into, I don't know if it's a SharePoint or some sort of platform. Again, it's inside a moat, right? It's protected virtually, so it's not out in the public space. They've got this internal to their system. And now if there's an error on that machine, the new maintenance person or even maybe an operator of the machine, maybe they don't even need to go to maintenance. They get an alert of some kind, P01753. you're not going to the manual.
Mm.
I don't know what page this is on.
Yeah.
It's called a manufacturer. No, go to the chatbot for this Amada, this Trump, this Mazak, this whatever. I've got this error code. What does this mean? It's getting page 72. Here's the wiring diagram for it. Did we have this before? Yes, we had this error 2 years ago because that's in our history.
It's a frayed wire. And there it is.
The ability to go to that level of information, and if you got good notes in your previous maintenance logs, it can pull those in and say, yeah, last time Jose or Jim or Jenny or whoever, they replaced this module. That's all we need to do. It's catalog number XYZ. It's available from the company in 24 hours. That can all be done with internal chatbots. And that's a game changer, because now instead of being down for 48 hours, maybe you're down for 12 hours, or you're down for 2 hours because you can fix it internally.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Are you spending as much time, kind of related, you were talking about testing and for new hires or new people entering an organization, but are you as involved in local workforce development efforts as you were maybe 3 years ago?
Probably not as much as I was, I'd say 5 years ago.
Okay.
But I'm still, or I don't think I was, maybe I was then, on the board of JARC.
Right. Jane Addams
Resource Corporation, who does wonderful work, not just within the manufacturing community, but in literacy and other areas for really lifting people out of poverty.
Right.
It's really transformative, important work. Cannot recommend them enough. And they're in Chicago, they're in Baltimore, Rhode Island. They're actually expanding quite a bit. So it's a wonderful, wonderful organization, been around for quite a long time.
Amazing how that woman her name has transcended time almost.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's a reverence for that. I mean, they've done fantastic work.
Yeah.
And continue. Regan Brewer is the president over there, and she does wonderful work. And the whole team does. I know you guys had Andrew Crow on.
Correct.
Yeah. He's also, so he and I are both on the board of JARC.
Cool.
So can't speak highly enough about them. They do wonderful work.
And I believe they're pretty well connected with like Friedman Seating Company as well.
Yes, very much connected with Friedman Seating. Yeah. They had, but I think they've just moved, but Friedman had a room that was available. They were doing welding training, and it was a direct conduit, which was wonderful for their welders to go right to work at Friedman, which is just a fabulous setup for them.
Right.
Yeah.
They, I believe, have now moved into the Aspire Center, but they maybe still have both, which is in West Chicago, which is a community center that is trying to, again, lift people up and engage that community. Yeah. So that's really the one area that I'm still involved. So whether I'll in 2026 kind of re-engage in other areas, we'll see.
Yeah. So taking your experience from S&C and now working at Laystrom, you've kind of painted a picture, interesting career path, which, to me, we're talking about it from a local community standpoint, but for me, that's kind of the promise of modern manufacturing on a global scale. What's the dynamic been between in terms of? I imagine it's a much more up close and intimate process when you're bringing in people into a smaller organization as opposed to a much larger organization where there were a lot of faces coming in.
There is, but the values are very similar though. And so when you're bringing someone in who's interviewing first time they're seeing the shop, that conversation isn't all that much different. Who are we? What are we about? What are our expectations? What are we trying to accomplish here? What do we need you to help us accomplish? It's not that much different. It's a different scale, obviously, right? A different scale, because there's thousands of people at S&C, and so bringing in people at a different scale, and maybe you've got more recruiters involved, so there's a little bit more of a process there. But actually at S&C, they do a really good job of this in that sense, because you are meeting typically that machinist who's coming in, or press brake person, or assembly person. The first person they're really meeting is the hiring manager, the person who they're going to have that relationship with. And so they're still having that conversation. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's where we're trying to go. Here's what we need from you. Here's why this matters. And we can have that conversation about culture. S&C is going to have that conversation about culture there too, because it actually maps quite similarly. They can add on things we can't add on, right? Because they're making a product that is making a meaningful impact on the world. Those green boxes you see in the corners, wonderful things, and that's something we can't leverage that they can leverage. They got one up on us there, right? Which is great, but they're actually not that much different in that sense when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Does Laystrom have success in finding people nowadays, given the competitive nature of finding manufacturing talent? I'm wondering how
it's tough.
Yeah,
it is. I've spent quite a lot of my time looking for a senior level operations person, and that's been a really interesting ride. And when I look at what's out there in terms of research and what people are saying about the market, it's really complicated because you've got people who are applying for jobs, and you see this. I talked to and this is all different levels in organizations. People at senior levels who are applying for jobs that look like they'd be a really good fit for. And they know that their resume is going into, was it an ATS, like a scanner with AI most likely, and it's just getting chewed up. And if it's not in the right format, it's basically rejected. And
right.
so the churn of that is really rough, even for people who have decades of experience. And the person I was about to talk about it, I just talked to somebody earlier this year who came out of college, had a mechanical engineering degree from, I don't remember whether it was University of Illinois or Michigan or, it was a good,
right.
very good school, very good degree, high marks, like 3 point whatever, 9 whatever GPA, like on the resume. And they had some experience. They had done some internships. They'd done 1,000 interviews.
Wow. Oh,
I'm sorry, 1,000 applications, not
right,
interviews.
right.
1,000 applications. 1,000. And they were talented. I talked to the mature young man. He wasn't flaky at all. Not, like it was, and I know since then he did get a start. He got somewhere, and I'm sure he's going to do well.
Right.
But it was just brutal. I mean, I've talked to somebody else, 2 other people in the last few months through referrals that I was just trying to help them make some connections. So there were friends who had asked me to work with my network and see if I could.
Right.
And I had these nice conversations, and really bright, and they were just really, really frustrated with the job market. And these are people who were 15, 20 years into their career.
Wow.
Eminently qualified.
Eminently qualified, and not trying to reach for some jobs they were not capable of.
Right.
And so it's a really difficult, weird marketplace right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think it's hard to make decisions.
Yeah.
And in some larger corporations, and sometimes maybe we're trying to ask for perfection, ever more than we ever have, or maybe a little bit risk averse.
We're operating under the assumption that perfection exists because of all these wonderful tools. It seems like I don't know.
Maybe, and it's very difficult to figure out like why all that is. But getting the right people in is so important,
Right.
that it's worth the effort. I've said for a long time the best decision I made at Laystrom was hiring Jeff Deck, because it was such an important figure in the organization and the work that we did together. Right. And so as I'm looking for that next person, it's like that's the standard.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to duplicate and trying to accomplish.
Make Jeff go find him.
Yeah.
I've thought about it. Yeah.
Anything on the horizon for Laystrom in terms of maybe announcements or news or?
No, I mean, I can't be letting you into all of our secrets, but
We were talking earlier about like emphasizing like the knowledge worker and I don't know, importance of like engagement and workplace culture. Does Laystrom still have their book club?
yes. And I did the same thing at S&C.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I had 2 book clubs at S&C. These 7 Habits, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and one of the best books I've ever read on business, which is Jim Collins's Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. So if you're familiar with Jim Collins's work, Good to Great, Built to Last, seminal works, BE Business and Entrepreneurship was released at the start of his very early in his career with Bill Lazier, who was a mentor of his. And 30 years later, as he kind of ended the chapter of all of this research, because he really calls himself like a historian and a researcher, the end of that, he republished BE 2.0, Business Entrepreneurship 2.0, and partly as in reverence for Bill Lazier, who had passed away, but then he was reflecting all the things he'd learned and rolling everything else up into one book. It's fantastic, and he left the original text as it is, and then annotated page by page almost next to it, what he'd learned 30 years later.
Wow.
And a lot of it held up, but then there was other learnings that came into it, and the map for how to go and be a level 5 leader and how to structure meetings and all this, it's all in there. It's a textbook. It's fantastic. So we did that and then earlier this year, 5 Dysfunctions of Team.
Oh, Patrick Lencioni.
Patrick Lencioni, who's got, also has The Advantage and other books. We're using Traction as part of our CEOS system, pulling pieces of that out for part of our strategic planning. So yeah, still leveraging book clubs. I love doing it. Going to keep doing that. I've got to figure out what's going to be next.
Gotcha.
Into Q1 of 26.
What do you think you get out of introducing that to like just the workforce?
So there's a few different things. One, I think it's so you get to scratch your own itch. Right? It's always a good to do. So I'm obviously I'm a bit of a bookworm and look for learning from these different places. That part of it is self-serving, right? Outside of that, the team gets a shared language. So if we talk about a circle of control, and we all know what that means in the context of Covey's principles, we have a shared language. If we talk about in the 5 Dysfunctions of Team, literally a month after I did that book club, somebody in a meeting called me out because I was looking at my phone. And it was one of the characters in the 5 Dysfunctions was somebody who was kind of always on his laptops in meetings. And I picked up my phone and looked at it, and somebody who was in this meeting said, Colin, stop being like Jeffrey or whatever the guy's name was, or Peter or Jimmy, whatever it was.
He talks in fables, yeah.
Yeah, and we all knew around the table exactly who she was talking about and what I was doing, and she was 100% right.
Yeah.
And so so there's a shared language. There's obviously, I think, learnings in these books that are useful as business strategies. So you're elevating the team from that perspective, and you're bringing the team together, right? Because they're one of the best stories that I remember from when the very first one I did was one of the people who, and this was Stephen Covey's book, and it was about one of the earlier chapters. I don't remember which one it was, but I think it was maybe about win-wins. But he said the book had changed the conversation that he and his daughter and his wife were having, because every Friday, his daughter was 15 at the time, every Friday she wanted to go do one thing, his wife, her mom, wanted her to do something else, and they would sort of fight all weekend, and it was terrible. And whichever the Covey's is about listening to the other person, basically. That Friday, after we'd had that discussion, he went, and when they started to have this argument, he stopped it, and he said he listened, got the two of them to listen to each other and figured out a conversation together, and it was the best weekend they'd had in weeks or maybe even months. It wasn't about the work, but he shared that story in the group. To me, that is building connection, because he's opening up with vulnerability, and that's how you build connection and trust. And so the knock-on effects of those things, I think, are enormous.
Yeah.
Oprah's got her book club. Now Colin's got his book club.
Clubs.
Yeah.
You don't be seeing any recommendations from me.
Yeah, I was going to start
I was about
asking
to
Dan
say,
for
TV Guide still around?
Right.
for
Well,
Reader's
you were
Digest.
asking if there was anything new, like with Laystrom, and I think that the thing that I would say is that there's not anything like structurally new. We don't go out in 2027, 28. There'll be other things we know. You talk about milestones, things that I can see in the future we'll likely be getting to. But one of the things we have to think about, and what we're trying to do as we reframe in some ways kind of who we are and where we're going is, and I think this is true of many businesses, so I wanted to bring it up because I think a lot of businesses operate the same way. But where we're at today, we've touched on a number of different things. You got to be fast. we have to be flexible. Then this is true of the team and the business, right? We have to be fast. We have to be flexible. Now, fast doesn't mean get things wrong, right? You have to be fast. You got to be flexible. The team has to be able to move around in different departments. The business has to be able to adjust and pivot to the market. You've got to be focused. What I mean by that is, as a business, you got to know your customer, right? You've got to have focus on what their needs and expectations are, how they do business, because most of the time we're the small guy, they're the big guy, and they're not going to adjust to us, so we need to really understand them. And in modern terms, we need to be frictionless. Can we make it easy? Is the ordering system easy? Is the communication easy? Is the process easy? And if we can do those 4 things, those are big enough changes. Because if we do them consistently, right? It's that thing, you go to the gym once for 4 hours, you make no difference. But if you go to do those 4 things, to do the thing consistently over time, then the transformation, those big things you might expect to see, they're going to come.
Mm-hmm.
You know those are 4 F's, right?
Yep.
Okay. I just it sounds very, very good.
He's a bookworm. He knows alliteration.
I know alliteration.
I'm just asking. If it was like happenstance, I was going to be equally impressed. So. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today, Colin.
Sure.
I'm going to roll this one out in case people think I'm dumb. I can actually be highbrow as well, making me sound smarter. Thank you, Lincoln.
Stop while you're ahead.
Wow.
All right, on that note, bye-bye. Me say bye-bye.
You can say bye-bye.
All right, see y'all later.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of Fabricators and Manufacturers Association, located in Elgin, Illinois. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and the staff of FMA Communications. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager and recorded and edited by Griffin Hammond and Dana Weicker. Sales support provided by Andy Flando. Additional production support by Elizabeth Gavin, Mike Owens, Billy Kolpa, Pat Simon, Brandon Geyer, and me, Sarah Spring. Email us at podcast@fmamfg.org. Thank you for listening.
No.
Oh, I'm doing all right then?
You're doing great.
Okay.